We can now go back to our analysis of taxes and think about the welfare effect of taxes. I'll first draw it in a diagram. So, as usual, we have to draw our demand and supply curves. So, quantity, price, here is demand and here is supply. D0 is S0, P0 and Q0. What happens if there is a tax? Well, the supply curve shifts to the left and the price increases to P1 and the quantity decreases to Q1. So, now this is the price that the consumers pay. Let me call it PC. And of course, this is the price that the sellers receive and the difference is the tax. So, let us talk about consumer surplus again. So, just like before, the consumer surplus is shaded in blue. This is before the tax has been imposed and the seller surplus is shaded in red, before the tax is imposed of course. So, originally the total welfare of the buyers and the sellers is given by this big triangle. Now, after the imposition of the tax, what has happened to the consumer surplus? Well, it has shrunk because a certain part of the consumer surplus is now going to the government. So, the government is taking away this part of your consumer surplus. What has happened to the seller surplus? That has also shrunk. What has happened is earlier it was this big triangle, now some part of it has been taken away by the government, the part which is again shaded in black. So, this big rectangle is actually the tax which is collected by the government. This is Q, this much is T. So, T times Q1 will give you the tax. So, you might say, so what? Well, just like before, what has also happened is that there has been a reduction in the consumer surplus and the producer surplus, but not all of it has gone to the government. This small triangle, which is part of consumer surplus and partly seller surplus, has now disappeared. It is gone. So, we say that this triangle represents the deadweight loss from taxation. So, what we are able to show with our diagram, just like we did in the case of a price ceiling, that a tax will reduce welfare of the society as a whole. It is okay for me to show this as a shaded area in a diagram, but what does it actually mean? Well, taxes change behavior. If the tax hadn't been there, the amount that would have been bought is Q0 and the price would have been lower at P0. So, there are again people who would have bought and sold, but who are not doing so because of the imposition of the tax, and that is the real loss in welfare. The loss from taxes comes because people change their behavior. We work less because of income taxes, we buy less because of sales and excise taxes. So, taxes reduce welfare. So, taxes should be avoided, right? But of course, the governments need to tax. I mean, there is, as long as there is a government which needs to raise money, it will have to tax. So, what to do? Well, one possibility is that if you are going to tax goods, tax those which have a low elasticity of demand and possibly a low elasticity of supply as well. That way, you will keep the deadweight loss down to a minimum.